Most people think that more training is better, and they're sort of right. But if you try to train twice a day without setting up your nutrition and your recovery to fuel and adapt to this increased training, then you're putting yourself on a fast track to illness, injury, and burnout. You've probably been there before. I know I have. Maybe you've got a holiday coming up and you're in a rush to get shredded. Maybe you've just got a fight or a competition confirmed. Whatever the reason, you've ramped up your training to twice training per day. But a few days into this new schedule, and you feel like a zombie, and all enjoyment has been sucked out of training. This happens because the jump from single to double daily training is huge, and most people don't plan for it appropriately. There's a huge reduction in your recovery hours between your sessions, down from almost 24 hours to as little as 4 to 6 hours to rehydrate, refuel, and recover. Whether you're a full time athlete or a regular gym goer, the principles remain the exact same. The point of training is to get better. If you're so underfueled that you're actually getting worse with this increased training, then you're defeating the whole point. Here's what you need to know and what to do about it so you don't fall into the same trap as your friends and teammates. And maybe you can even pass on this knowledge to them if you're feeling generous. There are 5 key areas we want to look at when adjusting our diet to account for twice a day training. First, number 1 is to increase your calories and your carbs to fuel this extra training. You'll be burning more energy, so you need to consume more energy. When it comes to moderate to high intensity exercise, most of our energy comes from carbs. So, out of protein, fat, and carbs, the 3 sources of calories, we want to make this increase in calories mostly from carbohydrates. I recommend increasing your calories by somewhere between 10 to 25%, towards the lower end of that range of about 10 to 15% if you're adding a conditioning session under an hour, or if you're adding a strength training session. If you're adding a longer, more intense session like 90 or more minutes of Muay Thai, MMA, boxing, Jiu Jitsu, then you want to go closer to the higher end of that range, about 20 to 25%, because you're going to be burning more calories. And you want to make this increase either all or mostly from carbs, depending on your preference. Let's say you're about 70 kilos and these were your previous macros: 140 grams of protein, 210 grams of carbs, and 70 grams of fats for a total of 2,030 calories. If you're going to add a 1 hour gym session, let's go for a conservative 10% increase in your calories. So 2,030 times 110% is 2,233, which is a 203 calorie increase. So we know your new calories, but how many more carbs do you need to eat? We know that carbs contain 4 calories per gram, same as protein, and less than half the calories of fat, which has 9 calories per gram. So 1 gram of carbs provides 4 calories from carbs. We just need to reverse the equation. 203 calories from carbs divided by 4 is 50.75 grams of carbs, and we'll round that to 51 grams. So we add that to your previous carb target of 210 grams plus 51 is 261 grams of carbs per day. So in this scenario, you would add 203 calories and 51 grams of carbs for your new daily targets of 2,233 calories, 140 grams of protein, 261 grams of carbs, and 70 grams of fats. If you prefer, you could make that bump from a mix of carbs and fats, but this way is more straightforward, and with 2 equally effective options, I'll always lean towards the simpler. It's important not to miss the forest for the trees, and at the end of the day, if you're hitting your calories and protein and you're not doing anything extreme with your carbs and fats, then you're doing good. Point number 2 is that your pre, intra, and post workout nutrition becomes even more important. Rather than seeing pre, intra, and post workout nutrition as 3 separate things, try to see them all under the umbrella of your peri workout window, or basically the 4 to 6 hours around your workout. We want to bracket your workout with protein and carbs. Protein will ensure that you've got plenty of circulating amino acids to support your muscle recovery, and carbohydrates will ensure that you have enough energy to perform at a high intensity during your session, as well as topping them back up after to support recovery and performance in your next session. A good rule of thumb is aiming for at least 1 gram of carbs per kilogram you weigh in both your pre and post training meal, or at least 70 grams of carbs if you weigh 70 kilograms. Practically, about 50 to 100 grams of carbs in each of these meals would be a good idea for almost everyone. It's also a good idea to get some protein at this meal to help fulfill some of your daily needs, although it won't directly benefit your performance. A few example meals could be overnight oats with a scoop of whey protein, a chicken salad wrap with some sriracha mayo, a bowl of cereal, muesli or granola with some added fruit and yogurt or milk, tuna pasta salad, a lean beef mince stir fry with rice or noodles, pan-fried cod with potatoes, or literally any other pairing of lean protein with a carbohydrate source that makes you feel good. Timing wise, eat this in the 1 to 4 hour window before your training session. You might want to stick to the further end of that range for larger, more filling meals like a beef stir fry, whereas something like a fruit and yogurt bowl would probably be fine eaten about 1 to 2 hours or a little bit closer to your training. Importantly, if you currently struggle to eat before training, you can train your gut to feel more comfortable with larger amounts of foods closer to training. It's a case of gradually increasing portion sizes and eating closer to training. Your gut will adapt and you'll be able to eat much closer to your session. So just know that if you're currently struggling to eat before training, it doesn't have to be that way forever. If you have early morning training and you struggle to hit this carbohydrate target, aiming for a smaller portion of about 30 grams of carbs would still be better for performance than doing fasted training. Something like a medium sized banana, some honey or jam on toast, a fruit flavored yogurt, or a smoothie would all be great options. And those smaller snack suggestions could also be paired with one of the main meals that I suggested before as a little top up to your carbohydrate stores a bit closer to training. For example, you could have a chicken salad wrap about 3 to 4 hours before training, and then some jam on toast 1 hour before your session as a little boost if you prefer. But a meal and a snack versus just a bigger meal is totally up to your preference. For longer workouts, say over 90 minutes, you're likely going to benefit from consuming some intra-workout carbs. We've got enough carbs stored in our muscles and in our liver for about 70 to 90 minutes of decent intensity training. But beyond this, and you'll start to feel your energy levels drop off, and you'll struggle to maintain the same higher pace that you were able to earlier in the session. In this case, consuming some intra-training carbs, about 30 grams an hour, will help to keep your output high so you can stay in gear 4 or 5 for the rest of your session, instead of being forced to drop to a lower gear due to depleted fuel stores. I recommend consuming these carbs via a sports drink because they're convenient, they don't sit too heavy in your stomach, and they provide an added bonus of supporting your hydration too. So, to summarize the timing, eat carbs within the 1 to 4 hours before, some carbs during if it's over an hour and a half in decent intensity, and again within about an hour or so of finishing your session, aiming for about 50 to 100 grams of carbs in both your pre and post training meals is a good rule of thumb. Number 3, hydration and restoring your fluid losses becomes even more important. You already know that hydration is important for sports performance. Even being just a little bit dehydrated is going to make training feel harder, and it reduces your endurance, your strength, and your sharpness. No bueno. Before training, you just want to ensure that you're not dehydrated. Otherwise, you'll be fighting a losing battle. Have a big drink alongside your pre-training meal or snack. That could be anything you like, but water or an electrolyte drink will be fine in most cases. You could have a cup of coffee or tea as well. It won't dehydrate you like some people say. Yes, caffeine does have a small diuretic effect, but a cup of coffee is 99% water, so you're taking on much more fluid than you're losing. During training, just drink to thirst, being mindful to drink little and often throughout your session. An electrolyte drink will be suitable for all sessions with a sports drink. On top of that, for hard sessions over 90 minutes, like I mentioned before. After training, drink back 1 to 1.5 liters per 1 kilogram lost in training. If you weigh yourself before and after a couple of training sessions, you're going to have a good idea how much you're normally going to lose and therefore how much you need to drink back. Don't weigh yourself before and after every session because it could get a little bit obsessive, but a couple of times will give you a decent baseline and then you can drink a little bit more or less than that based on your thirst. Electrolyte drinks are a good shout because they will help to rehydrate you better than plain water alone due to the added sodium. Plus, they also taste good and that can prompt you to drink more. That said, plain water is also probably fine as long as you're salting your meals. Also, finally, don't just down this fluid all at once. Don't drink more than 1 liter per hour and you'll be all good. Number 4, you may need to eat more processed foods to hit your energy needs. I can already see the horrified comments pouring in now that I always get whenever I dare to mention cereal, Nutella, or anything remotely processed.
I can't believe nutritionists are recommending cereal. Don't you know it's literal poison?
If it was literal poison, most of us would be dead, but I do understand your confusion. These foods are quite high carb, high sugar, low fiber, and low in micronutrients, and not particularly filling. That means it's easy to consume a fair amount of calories from them, and they don't really fill you up. For most scenarios, those features do not make up a healthy food. But in the scenario of a high energy output with multiple training sessions per day and a short time to refuel between these sessions, these foods are great to add to your diet. Notice that I said add and not to replace healthy foods. They're the same types of foods fighters eat post weigh-in, where yes, they need to eat a lot of carbs without feeling overly full and without causing gut discomfort. It's not about good or bad, it's about the right tool for the right job. These include things like sports drinks, protein shakes, and easily digestible carbs like cereal, honey, jam, bread, bagels, and rice cakes. They can help you eat enough to fuel your training without feeling uncomfortably full during your session. Remember, these are being added on top of your already healthy diet. They're not replacing fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and healthy fats. And these sports foods are mostly high carb only. They're not high carb and high fat like cakes, croissants, brownies, and other classic junk foods. It's the combination of carbs and fats that tend to be present in the foods we normally overeat. Fifth and finally, recovery becomes way more important when you're training twice a day. Nutrition and hydration are part of your recovery, and that means eating and drinking like I recommended in those last 4 points. But recovery also means making time for mental and physical relaxation, whatever that means for you, whether that's Netflix, reading, walking, listening to a podcast or audiobook, but probably not scrolling through TikTok at 2 a.m. And also, crucially, sleep. Not only the 8 to 10 hours I recommend per night in a cool, dark room when you're training twice per day, but also potentially adding in a daytime nap between 1 and 4 p.m. if possible. Also, get off your phone before bed. Trust me, it makes a huge difference. Even just watching TV and not double screening with your phone will be a significant improvement. Ticking off all of these strategies that I've recommended will level up your recovery between sessions and will transform your performance as a result, allowing you to become fitter, stronger, faster, and ultimately a better athlete. After all, that's the whole point of training, isn't it? Now, these 5 points are just a few of the many ways that you can use your diet to level up your performance. I've compiled 44 days of my best nutrition advice to help you look and perform like a pro athlete, regardless of your starting point. If that sounds like something you want, then click the link in the description box below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, YouTube reckons you're going to love this video, so give it a watch if you fancy.